Can we say there's a question of deepening and intensifying an Ereignis in specific situations? So, for instance, when Freud speaks of the glorious isolation at the beginning of his discoveries, before he had any interaction, and perhaps it was a matter of some indifference to him whether he ever would encounter Carl Jung. But when he did encounter Carl Jung, who is, of course, his junior, then was it that there was a moment of deepening of the Ereignis that had opened up during that so-called glorious isolation, which I suppose included the the heightening of the consciousness of his, the theory of evenly suspended attention and the psychoanalytic session in connection with the step beyond his early training, which was basically the training in the theory of evolutionary biology that the Germans inherited from Ernst Haeckel, and which dominated in Vienna in his youth, so that he made an independent step beyond the thing that was then prevalent when he became a medical doctor, and the consciousness of it was very keen for him. So is that a kind of Ereignis, and then when that he holds it in existence in the glorious isolation, then it builds his technical terminology around it. And when it reaches this discussion with Jung, is it that Jung who's made independent discoveries along the same lines, since after all he was more or less in the same boat of it, with a few mutandis situations. I mean, that he studied Kant and philosophy somewhat more than Freud, that he had this attitude of breaking from the moment when the critical reasoning comes to a halt, and that he had the theory that which links up to Heidegger, that we can't explain the unconscious through a theory of associations. So the theory of associations is kind of a cop-out. And Heidegger says at the same time, we try to explain memory through association, but it doesn't. That's just a kind of cop-out. I said, by the way, in the recent On Ultimate Things entry that Heidegger could have possibly said being in memory rather than being in time. That's how central it is. Has a problem, that the memory in some way becomes fused or confused with thinking or denken. The more we kind of push at it, and that there's a kind of basic opening there, but the shared heightened consciousness of a Ereignis of this type seems to lend itself to being mutually held into existence, and then it could, of course, we could see very clearly where it can fall out of existence and just become a congeries of technical terms which aren't really understood, just as a dead language, as I was trying to get at in the last discussion, could also become just the academic fluency in a dead language, rather than what the original speakers actually understood themselves to be saying, which then also we should link up with Plato's Euthydemus.